Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to our residents.
Yes.
I think we have Ron Rolfe and James Brazier and Lorraine Hambidge. We have three apologies tonight. KCC Councillor Emma Dawson, Councillor Matthew Scott, and Councillor Tim Green. Item number 2, do any members have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare? No, thank you. Right, we have the minutes of the meeting of the last full council meeting, which we need to receive and approve. We've obviously had these minutes for some days, so if somebody would like to propose that we accept the minutes, and second, Pauline propose, and David second. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you, everybody, and thank you. We need to receive the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Everybody happy with those? Second, propose and second. Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Nightingale, and all in favour? Thank you. The Human Resources Committee, held on the 24th of November. If someone would like to propose that we accept those. Councillor Pennington, thank you, and seconded by Councillor O'Connor, thank you. And finally, the Planning and Highways Committee, which was held on the 8th and the 14th of December. Now, these haven't been signed, so...
No, but they have been received and approved by that committee, so they are approved.
Thank you, Jill. If we could have a proposer and a seconder, please. Councillor Page and Councillor Pennington, thank you. And everybody in favour? Lovely, thank you very much. Item number 4 is the Town Clerk's report.
Thank you. Okay, just a few items this evening for everybody. Westgate in bloom. As some residents and councillors may have seen, the actual area on the Lymington Green is being prepared by the Thanet District Council. This is going to be a wildflower meadow section. There's going to be 2 corners of the green that are going to be prepared for wild meadows and grass seeds. There are bulbs arriving next week, bluebells and snowdrops, so they'll be planted in the next 2 or 3 weeks as well. And we're pleased that King Ethelbert School have also benefited from the seeds and the bulbs as well. So they're going to be planting seeds and bulbs as well at the school. There's going to be a virtual meeting arranged for all the Westgate in Bloom leads later this month, and I will email all those involved to advise of the date and time. Peter, our tree biodiversity warden, has settled into his role, and we're having weekly catch-up meetings to discuss any queries and concerns. He's researching the practical approach for the hope that we can start work on an inventory of our trees we have in Westgate later this year. The Census 2021. Census Day is on the 21st of March, and hopefully people have read the small article in our magazine on page 22. This is going to be the first census run predominantly online, so please make sure you keep an eye out for your letter with your unique access code that will be posted to you. We're continuing to support some residents with the medication collection and delivery, and there are a few shopping requests coming through each week as well. The Town Council magazine should all now be delivered to residents, and if there are any properties that have not yet received a copy, please let us know, because we do have some spares in the office. We can actually pop one through your letterbox for you. The annual town meeting is now scheduled for Thursday, the 22nd of April. Owing to the current restrictions, we don't know at this time if we can host it at the community centre. This is provisionally booked at the community centre. But if it doesn't happen physically, we will be having a virtual annual town meeting this year. And lastly, the dates for the Scarecrow Festival is the 18th to the 24th of July this year. And hopefully we can all look forward to an opportunity to celebrate the unique community spirit again. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jill. Thank you. Item number 5 is the report from Councillor Dawson, who can't be with us tonight. Just to short run through on what she says in her report, which you'll all be receiving by email shortly. The general focus of KCC at the moment is the health, schools and the business recovery, with the leader, Roger Goff, highlighting the need for the early years staff vaccination for obvious reasons, because they just cannot manage social distancing. There's an important consultation called Vision Zero, and this is about the general public feeding into a 5-year road safety strategy plan, which aims for safer systems to reduce the impact of human error with obviously on the highways and traffic and vehicle generally accidents. The success, Emma says, of the strategy depends on the communities engaging in the first step in the consultation. And this closes on the 15th of March. And I do feel that the Town Council needs to highlight consultations, because it is our way of communicating with the local authorities. Also, Emma mentions the Kent Experience project. This is between southern England and the north of France, and it's to foster economic development between the areas. It's already started running. It started in 2019 and it goes on until 2023. And it's really about sharing experiences and understanding difficulties, particularly transport, particularly at Christmas. So that's the report from the KCC councillor. Our own councillors, I believe that Councillor Pennington, do you have a report for us, and also Councillor Donaldson?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to inform members of the Executive Committee, the Kent Association of Local Councils meeting last Saturday morning. The meeting lasted approximately 2.5 hours, but I don't intend to report it in great detail this evening. Firstly, one of the main items was the election of representatives on outside bodies and CALC working groups. Most of these were carryover from last year. They were looking for substitutes for members to sit on the Transport Committee of CALC, and I volunteered for that because I think it may tie in with a lot of our concerns. Secondly, the main topic was finance, and the big issue here is CALC reserves. Should they keep reserves covering 3 months expenditure or 6? And there's a large body on the Executive Committee that feels that we should move towards covering 6 months. I urged caution in respect of increasing the fees for CALC. The finances for this year have moved from a forecast deficit of about £8,000 to one which is roughly in balance. I hope that the drive towards increasing reserves will be done gradually and not suddenly. There was some discussion about moving CALC staff back into their office, on which we agreed that it was up to Dover District Council, who run the office, to make the key decisions. The Learning and Development Programme was the subject of an extensive report. Due attention was paid to improving the quality of the teaching, the effect of moving to a virtual approach, and the positive response given to what's called bite-sized training, which is fairly short training sessions which can be done very easily at a distance. Next item was the annual meeting in 2021, and we just decided that we don't know yet whether it will be virtual or real. There was some discussion about whether we should have an invited speaker. And on this, as at several points in the agenda, I did push for, as far as possible, virtual approach, even if it can be combined with a real or live meeting, that people who are at a big distance like we are can participate on screen. There was a list of county issues which was raised, and Calc are particularly concerned that those councils that have suffered financially should press the government to step in and help them. There's quite a big lobbying exercise going on this, because people feel that the government has been listening to county council and district council levels, but not enough to parish and town councils. And last but not least, on national issues, there was quite a lot of discussion on Brexit traffic and the difficulties of crossing the channel, all the both coronavirus and Brexit related hoops that drivers have to jump through. And I did stress that although this seems to be tolerable at the moment, there is always a risk that a major breakdown might cause a considerable backup of traffic, particularly between Manston and Dover. I will make the documents that were circulated available to the clerk, and if anybody wishes to see them, I'm sure she can provide them. Thank you. Can I also just point out that on a completely different subject, there is a meeting of the Business Forum this coming Monday, and again we shall have the participation and support of Sharon Davis from Thanet District Council. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Pennington. That's a really that was a full comprehensive meeting you had there with Calc and transport. Definitely, that's good that you were on that, because it is high. Well, I said earlier to Councillor Dr. Scott that it's in the limelight at the moment, especially after the event we had during the summer. Councillor Donaldson.
Hi, good evening, thanks. Yes, I'd just like to report, which I did actually last month as well, that we're still struggling with volunteers for the food club. Even though, unfortunately, in the magazine, I wrote a kind of a 1,500 word article promoting it. We have held back the leaflet that we're also going to provide. And I've had, you know, extensive talks with Sharon Goodyear, and she's very, very concerned about her volunteers, you know, getting ill through COVID-19. And, you know, I can't help but to agree with it. But for emergency food, Steve from Changing Minds is thankfully holding the shop. And that's my report, really. I was also going to mention the Business Forum, but Martin got him before me. So well done. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Did Sharon Goodyear mention bags of taste in her conversation with Samantha? Samantha Buckland?
No, she didn't. No.
Ah, no. Okay. All right. Because they're doing a similar. Well, not similar, but it's about food.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I mean, Sharon is so dynamic. She's also opened a second operation in Margate, just up from the food club shop, which is actually producing cooked food. You know, and cooked food sort of takeaways, really. So she's still hard at it, bless her. Anyway,
oh, excellent.
You know, lockdown or no lockdown.
Oh, yeah. That's really good news.
Yeah.
That is good. Thank you. Councillor Walling, Councillor David Walling.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try and keep this brief this month because it wasn't brief last month. Basically, just a couple of points. Once again, I'm doing lots of volunteer deliveries of food and medicine for people. And interestingly, not all of those are to Westgate. We've got people in Birchington who use our pharmacy, which is great for the local town, you know, because they've got pharmacies over there, but they want to get the stuff from Westgate. They can't get to it, whether it's in Westgate or Birchington, but they order it from Westgate once and I go and pick it up for them, which is great. Also, I've had some involvement with the local surgery. It's the local COVID inoculation places in Minster, but it's used by Westgate Surgery, and I've been involved with the practice manager trying to sort out an arrangement for cones and things on the parking there, because Minster is jam-packed at the moment for that very reason. And I've put her in a couple of, I've helped her a fair bit with that. But also, which didn't come to anything, there is a premises in Westgate that has made a fair bit of room available for a potential inoculation COVID jab place in Westgate. The doctor's surgery, etc., have all turned it down at the moment, but we do have somebody who would like to, he's got room and would like to offer it available. I've tried to take it forward, but can't get anywhere with it yet. So that's me done for this time.
Thank you, Councillor Wallen. Any other councillors? Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, it was just a quick update. You probably saw in the Planning, Highway and Environment minutes that we responded to a KCC consultation around cycling and walking. There's a new route being proposed between Birchington and Margate. And when we looked at the consultation documents, they were quite easy to fill in. Their proposal was very interesting, very good idea. And we've just sort of suggested a number of amendments or suggestions to for them to think about with regards to linking up perhaps with the new homes, linking up along Minster Road and making sure that the north-south connections connect up with the east-west connections, which was one of their questions. So yeah, I just thought I'd let you know that we were very impressed with this consultation. So looking forward to more positive interactions with KCC in the future. Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Right, moving on. Neil, you've arrived. Good evening. Good evening.
Evening. Yeah, sorry for the logging in problems at the start. It's probably more my fault than anything else. So apologies for that, my late arrival. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Obviously,
welcome, and we look forward to hearing what news you have for us since the last meeting.
Well, I shall try and keep it brief. I mean, this is sort of, as Dr. Scott is probably aware from her past endeavours, this takes up a lot of your own personal time doing this sort of thing. So, yeah, I've just come off of our latest meeting, which is still going on now, to attend this. So, yeah, good evening. It's Neil Woodward. I'm representing Westgate Action Group Against Housing. It says what it does on the tin. Obviously, we're massively opposed to what's going on, what's being proposed every 5 minutes, it seems, at different sites throughout Thanet. We are interacting with Birchington regularly and Salmerston and other groups around. We're at the point now where we know what our objectives are. They're the same as everybody else's. But we now want to sort of ask WTC up front now for some help. That would be for some printing and copying, for leaflets, flyers, etc., if that facility would be available for us to use. But mainly now we're at the point where everyone's in agreement, and I know we've discussed this before on here, for a planning consultant. There's only so much picking apart of documents we can. Birchington have appointed someone already. So what I wanted to ask was, is there someone you recommended before? I believe that name was Daniel Dunn. I have a name for somebody else. I've been made aware there may be previous reports from consultancy from last time, if they would be available. And the $1 million question is, for this planning consultant, could we as a group discuss with WTC for some assistance with funding to appoint a planning consultant, please?
Thank you, Neil. Could you, firstly, you mentioned objectives. You've got your objectives sorted. Could you share those with us, please?
Well, the absolute objective would be to stop this housing application. It just doesn't stack up from every angle, be it the archaeology. We know that Historic England have got concerns about the Roman monument or whatever around the back of Quex. Obviously, there's other people that are a lot more informed than I with the farming issues, the archaeology issues, the traffic issues. We've just been discussing about the land being downgraded from 1 to 2, which it hasn't. It is grade 1 farmland. So a lot of it doesn't add up. A lot of it doesn't stack up. And as much as there's some very clever people out there in all of our groups picking this apart, yeah, we think we need help now. And we don't think that we've got time to lose in just discussing it anymore. We need to sort of take it forward, and we're going to need some help with that.
Right, would any councillors like to comment on this? Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, hi Neil.
Hi,
Thank
Neil.
you for coming along. So you came along to the Planning, Highways and Environment Committee, and I think you came along to the full council meeting last month as well. And I think the agreement is that, you know, Westgate Town Council would like to, you know, help you in any way possible. However, I think that the questions that you've got and the investigations that you're doing currently are some things that we did sort of 4 years ago. So we had a planning consultant, Lindsay Frost, with regards to the neighbourhood plan, and we were looking at all of these aspects. And then during that time, we couldn't find a legal argument against the houses. There are lots of arguments against aspects of it, which need to be amended and thought through. However, to actually stop the 2,000 houses, there's no legal argument against stopping housing on agricultural land. Then obviously the local plan was signed off, which means that these allocations will be going ahead. And then the master plan application came out, at which point we used money from the town council rather than from the neighbourhood plan group to employ Danielle Dunn, who looked at this master plan application. Once again, she said, there's no way to stop these houses. However, these are the material considerations. So I don't know if you've read our representation, but we've gone against the 2,000 houses, knowing that we can't stop them. However, there's a number of questions that we'd like to be addressed in the master plan application. So, you know, we've already gone through these steps and we've got to this position now. You know, it would be really useful if, you know, you go through the representation that we've done with the planning consultant and looked at those material considerations, such as, you know, lack of thought around biodiversity, lack of thought around the birds and the bats on the site, lack of thought around the eco builds, the fact that the archaeological report is not available, the access to, you know, the travel plan. So all these things will go back, and we're now in the consultation process. So fundamentally, there's no way to stop the houses apart from stopping houses in the future. And in order to do that, the route is to go down a much higher level route, which is with MPs, to change the law on building on grade 1 and grade 2 agricultural land.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, great, thank you for that. So this was 4 or 5 years ago. But as we know, the landscape, the goalpost, whichever way you want to phrase it, everything has changed and moved. We've interacted with Roger Gow. The mutant housing algorithm has now been scrapped. Building on grade 1 farmland should be a last resort, looking at inner city sites, brownfield sites, etc., etc., etc. And surely all applications pending or whatever should be under this new consideration. So the fact that these have gone in, this application has gone in, I kind of believe that it's a pending application and it should be treated as such as any other application. So yeah, we do think things have changed. We read it every day.
That's good. Just so first of all, the mutant algorithm, any reading on that You kind of think that they might be decreasing the number of houses, but actually in lots of reports, they're using this. And then by the end of the paragraph, it's actually to increase the speed of house building. You know, the government's really quite worried that they're allocating land, but then houses are not being built. So it's not actually to decrease the number of houses, it's to increase the speed of houses being built. And then with regards to building on brownfield sites, the problem with Thanet is that there's a very small number of brownfield sites. We've got a massive pile of agricultural land. And the only way in the future to stop this level of housing being on agricultural land is to change the law on building on agricultural land. So, like, I think that, you know, it needs to be a long-term view. And if your group is in the long-term view and is concerned about building on agricultural land, then that's the route to take. But however, there's no way to stop the houses being built on this allocation, even if we proved that the population increase was not as great as being suggested. Say if instead of building 17,000 houses, it can be proven that we actually only need 12,000 houses. The strategic allocations, one of which we've got the 2,000 houses, have to go ahead because they're large enough to be able to pay for things like new medical centres, new schools. Smaller allocations, they're not able to kind of, you know, do this. They're not strategic. So even if the housing requirement was reduced, those strategic allocations like Birchington, Westgate, Westwood Cross, they'd still go ahead. They wouldn't suddenly, you know, decrease in size because of a decrease in housing need. And this is what, you know, I argued all the things that you argued a number of years ago. And this, unfortunately, is the planning law, and these are the answers. So until the planning law changes, we won't really get anywhere, unfortunately. But we can delay this master plan application because they haven't met the standard that we need and that the planning law needs.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Scott. Councillor Pennington.
Yes, thank you. I was wanting to make exactly the point that Councillor Scott made at the end there. The development plan, local development plan, has been approved in accordance with all the procedures, and to question the development plan is a non-starter. So we have to work within that. What we can do is to ensure that any applications are strictly in accordance with the requirements and meet the highest standards. And that is where I think we can raise lots of questions about this particular application, and we certainly should do. I think it's important also that members of TDC are well aware of the concerns, and that we do help the planning committee in looking at this application to consider all the aspects because of the major effect that it could have in all sorts of ways, economically, ecologically, to a wider area, even beyond Westgate and Birchington. So I think that's the thing to focus on. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor. Thank you, Councillor Pennington.
You were mentioning that you wanted some financial support from Westgate Town Council, but it was very loose in what you required. So before even we could have considered that, we would need to have a plan of what you were trying to ask Westgate for, and obviously that would have to go to the Finance Committee and then back to full council for voting on that. So so obviously if you could draw up something of what you were asking Westgate Town Council to help you with financially, obviously that's something that we could look at as a whole body when we've got all that information together.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Yes, don't lose heart, Neil, because as we said before, the consultation TDC is not over yet, and they are actually advertising for an information governance manager. I don't know if that's got anything to do with the houses that are planned. That's for free FOI information. So obviously a lot of questions are being asked about this, a lot. Sorry, and I think you saw the petition that was flagged up on Facebook. The
Yes,
Parliament petition.
I think that stands at about 1,000 last time I checked earlier.
Well, well, that's good. It's growing quickly then, because there weren't that many when I signed it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're happy. We're now sort of we're hoping that WTC will back us, even with some admin and copying and printing, which I've been asked to ask tonight. Yes, we would like some funding. Did someone say to me earlier there is copies of the reports that came in from 4 or 5 years ago? Was they available? Okay. Where would I find? Would I find them on the website?
Councillor Dr. Scott.
Yeah, so there's a number of reports on the website, but the most recent one we did last month, which is a report with regards to the master plan. So it's, you know, there's a number of reports going back a number of years, but the most recent one was only, you know, a month or so ago, where we've used updated information and responded to it using updated information. However, just quickly, you know, I think really the route needs to be to Sir Roger Gale, and I think that, you know, Westgate Town Council is definitely happy to perhaps write another letter to our MP, because this really does need to be taken higher.
Yes, please. That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. How are we for time on that, Jill?
No,
So we
that's
have
fine.
15.
Yep. So Lorraine is asked to speak next.
Right. Thank you, Neil. Lorraine Hambidge. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Can I just say to Neil before I start what I'm talking about, Just Giving. I set up a Just Giving page to buy a defibrillator for our community centre, because I know that Westgate has got good community spirit. There was people that said that the town council should fund this, but I said, let's see what the people can do. And through the Just Giving page, we raise £1,169, mainly all in one day in Westgate, because people are passionate about our town. So, you know, there are other ways that we can also help fundraise for these sorts of things. So that's just something I wanted to bring in. Also, the census for Westgate, when the last census was done, one of the first big meetings we had about this planning thing, our population had only grown by, I think it was 220 something. So why do we need 2,000 houses?
We don't.
You know, well, we all know this, but that is something that also needs flagging up. What is our population? How is our population grown? You know, we're not growing that big. So where do we need all these houses? But anyway, what I'm supposed to be talking about was my defibrillator project. Jill told me, and Councillor Cornford told me, that they'd got a defibrillator being donated for the community centre area. And I said, let's see if the community can raise the funds to buy the cabinet for it to go in. So it was outside and it had 24-hour access if needed. I started by my face masks that I've been making. I made some that were specially for Christmas, and donation went into the defibrillator fund. So that kicked it off with £102. We set up this Just Giving page, which raised £1,169. And we also had a raffle, which we drew yesterday, which raised £236.28 for tickets that was £1 each. We don't know where the 28p came from. So in total, we raised over £1,500. This shows that our town are happy to support things in our town. So instead of getting the one defibrillator cabinet, which we set out to do, we're actually supplying the town with 2 defibrillator cabinets and a brand new defibrillator. We've got a shortfall of, I think it's £260, which I understand the financial committee had already had a chat about this. But it just shows that our town is willing to do things to help make it better. So I'm also doing the Scarecrow Festival, which Jill mentioned earlier, through my community spirit page. we decided that we would again bring it forward to when Westgate Day should be. But with what we did last year, which was absolutely outstanding, we thought we would have about 15 scarecrows around the town, and we had 45, which made a 2-day event for people to be able to social distance, walk around our town, enjoy things, speak to people at a safe distance. The churches were involved. So one of the questions that came with, one of the things that was said to us several times is it wasn't long enough. And where I've seen these scarecrow festivals up in the Midlands, where my daughter lives, they include the pubs and different things. And the pubs will have like a cider festival on, and they'll have all straw bales out and things. So this is why I suggested that we have a week, so that it can be over 2 weekends, so that if we have one weekend where it pours down with rain like it did on the Sunday, but people were still walking around for 2-3 hours at a time to do the route last year in the pouring rain, where, you know, there's a good chance that we will get more than one sunny day. So, but what I also would like is more of the councillors to help with the promotion of it and get involved in it with the business forum. Me and myself and Richard, we put wooden scarecrows all around the town with the posters on a good month before. And I had several of the nurseries, when I said to them, are you doing scarecrow? We didn't know anything about it. It's in the magazine, it's on posters and everything else. People do walk around with their eyes shut, we do know that. And if they think it doesn't interest me, it doesn't. But it proved it was such a good thing. So it really would be nice to see more of the councillors and our community groups and what have you getting involved. And because it is a great promotion for our town as well. And it costs next to nothing to do. And people can have a fun weekend. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Lorraine. That's 2 huge successes. And Neil, you need to get Lorraine on board for that fundraising.
Sorry, I've got enough on my plate. I'm going to be a granny.
You're going to be a grandmother?
Yeah.
Oh, more of that later. Congratulations.
Well done.
Congratulations. Right, thank you both. We now have to move on to the next item agenda, which is the finance reports. Councillor O'Connor, if you go through these, can we receive A, B and C as we go? And then go on to E?
Oh, you're on mute, Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, that's me.
Beg your pardon. Yeah. Yes. So what we've got is our normal reports, which are A, B and C. Obviously, they're just our bank reconciliations, which shows you what cash we've actually got in the bank at this moment in time. We've also got our payments that have been paid out. We've got our detailed payments and receipts by budget heading. So we've got all of those normal reports, and I've not received any inquiries about any of these. Councillor Wallins.
Yeah, sorry, just a very minor point. Looking through it, vehicle expenses, tax and MOT is way above the budget. I assume it's repairs caused by failure of the MOT have been categorised as being an MOT expense when they're actually just a repair. It's only a minor thing. It's just, I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Wallins. If you've got any queries about any lines on the budget to help us so that we'd be able to actually look into those lines, we'd be helpful if you put it forward, and then we can actually tell you exactly what exists in that actual line by invoice.
Yeah, it's very minor.
Sure,
I just saw it. I thought I'd mention it. So.
I'm sure Jill will be able to answer it, but it's just that we could actually get the physical invoice up for you.
Yes, it's just to say, yes, there was some work needed on the brakes when it went for its MOT, so that's what it was.
But should that be categorised as an MOT expense or a repair? I would have thought it should be a repair because it is a repair.
I think because it's all on one invoice, when it goes onto the system, it's all input on one invoice. That's what it is.
Yeah, fair play.
Thank you. So yes, if any queries like this that you need to bring up, we can go back to the actual source documents quite easily, but obviously, particularly at a virtual meeting, we can't bring out that source document unless you tell us. So if you can, because you've had the reports beforehand, would you mind letting either myself or the office know, and then we can have them in front of us and we can actually tell you what's in it, just like
Yep,
that.
we'll do.
Okay.
It's not a minor thing. I just thought I'd mention it.
No, that's fine. But if in future, if you can make sure that you bring it to our attention, you can still bring it up, but it just means that we've got the information that we can actually in public be able to give to you and know it is a truth and a fair, you know, reading of that information. So we don't want to surmise anything. We would like to be able to give you a proper actual reading of that. So okay, so those are the differences of the reports. But as I said, anytime you want to have a look at any particular invoice in detail, that can be done, but obviously we do need some notice for doing that. Okay, so should we receive those 3 reports, or is there anything?
Councillor Pennington, you're on mute.
I propose we receive them.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Councillor Donaldson. All in favour? Thank you. But we've also done a forecast report for you. So you'll see your forecast report, and we're doing the earmark reserves. The idea of this is to show you what we think we're going to come in at the end of the year, and we're looking at earmark reserves. And obviously we want to start to look at some of the unidentified projects that we should really start being identified for the things that are going forward. So looking at our forecast, we do believe that we're going to be underspent again this year. Obviously that's mostly due to the fact that we're not open and doing some of the bits and pieces that we would be doing normally. But we've also got a few things like the VAT, which was £6,000, which related to last year, but was claimed at the beginning of this year. So that was the whole of the income of that coming in. We are now claiming on a monthly, 3 monthly basis. So it's done in the year that it's done now. So we're claiming our VAT back again. So that is part of the VAT coming back in. So that contributes to our underspend. We've got salary underspends at the moment, and we've got a couple of other things. So it was discussed at the Finance and General Purpose meeting, whether we, you know, what could be done with some of this underspend, you know, other than just going straight into reserves, and how it could be used. And things like our asset transfer was brought up, and as most people know, we're trying to get storage container to keep some of our work stuff in from, because we're losing the hut of a secure container. Now originally that was going to be placed on the community centre site, but that can't happen now, and so it was looking at replacing it by the pavilion of our new asset transfer. But obviously part of it would need to be put into a secure area for that. So they were looking at saying that let's use some of that underspend of the VAT to actually get the fencing done, get the security done of that, and then when all the assets up and we've got everything, we've got a secure area to keeping not only our equipment in, but we've got a secure area for keeping football goalposts and all that type of thing in. Very similar to, I don't know if anybody's looked at Dane Park, but Dane Park have got one against their pavilion, and they've got all their storage against that. So that was one idea of looking at for using things like that. And we were looking at things like, we've obviously got some money of the grants left over this year, and we've got 2,500 because we've not had any grants. People haven't been raising for it. So there was the thought of that, providing the shortfall that that Lorraine needs to finish off her 2 cabinets, and using some of that money as well to actually get the work done to get the cabinets all sited, which Jill will be able to go into detail on afterwards. But the other thought was that why don't we get the last but not least one in, which is to get one for St Mildred's Bay. West Bay's got one, so why not get the DFIB in for St Mildred's Bay and use our grants for our community in that way? So it's all community based, and so you know, hopefully when we're all up and running for the summer and everything, if anybody does have any heart attack or anything else like that, both of our bays are covered, our town's covered, our community centres are covered, and so is Lymington area up there, which gives really good coverage for Westgate, and they'll all be accessible because they'll be on the outside. So that was the idea. So that's something that we were looking at doing that for. And then there was a kind of a small bit of underspend. Obviously, we put some aside for Westgate Day. We've already transferred 2,000 to COVID, but there was a small amount there. We said that it was only about 750, and we said, you know, do we want to use that for something, you know, to support something else as well? I mean, we've already just had something said today about the housing, but there's lots of things like David's already mentioned, the children's lunches, well, you know, the food and things like that. So there's a couple of things that we kind of looked at and said, yes, we do need to put some more into reserves, and if we've got any underspend, that would normally go into that. But also, these are community projects, and can we use this money to benefit the community from it? So that was one of the things. And the other thing is actually our earmark reserves. Although I don't expect a decision, we can bring it up for a decision today. We were looking at, we've still got no projects identified for the 15,000 that we hold at the moment. And there was sort of, you know, some more bins are kind of likely to be needed. You know, we've got the shelters, we've got the Christmas lights, we've got the boating pool. You know, there's a few little kind of projects that are coming up, and obviously with our new assets as well, there's, you know, bits and pieces coming up from there, and just mentioned that. So we're kind of thinking maybe we ought to start putting earmarking some of those away for that and actually looking at that. So it was to be brought up that people could put some ideas and we could vote on it for our next meeting if everybody's in agreement of those. And obviously that's the two things to vote on this current year's spending is, I mean, I'd like to be able to ask you now if everybody is happy for us to use the rest of our grants and donations to support the DFIB cabinets and things through Westgate. If anyone's, sorry.
I'm going to say I've got a report on that shortly.
Oh, well, so yeah, so that would be, well, we'll save that then for that, to under the report. Sorry, Martin. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very interesting, and I think it's really important to look at all these ideas. It's great that you've got ideas bubbling up. There are several ideas kicking around from the past as well, and some of them were encapsulated in the plan that the Coastal Community team produced maybe 3 years ago now. There's also the Clark can remind me what it was called, the forward-looking plan, which we had forward plan a couple of well, last year really. Yeah. I think it would be a good idea if we had revisit some of these ideas, see what, you know, we don't think is a runner anymore, see what we would like to pick up again and maybe push a bit more. There are all sorts of ideas surrounding St Mildred's Bay as well, and yeah, I think, you know, I think there are all sorts of things we could be thinking of, and I would be grateful if a report could come to the next committee meeting, really, you know.
Yeah, can I
scrap that and put this in?
Yeah, could I ask then that the councillors have a couple of weeks to think about it, send the ideas either through to myself or to Jill, and then I'll work with Jill and we'll get a report ready for next full council meeting. So just so that we can collate them together, and maybe if you know some costs, if it's something small and we know the costs, we can put those on so that we know the ballpark figure that we're putting for each of these little projects. Yeah, would that be all right for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's carried. Yeah. So that's mine for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. That sounds really good. And item number 9.
Councillor Cornford. Hello,
Councillor-
sorry. Just, yes, if we can just receive those reports, thank the last 2, the forecast, thank you, earmark reserves.
Okay. Yes. Is everyone happy with those?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought you'd done that. I thought Councillor O'Connor did that. I'm sorry.
Nothing.
Right, item number 9, 2021, the Calc Community Awards Scheme. Town Clerk.
Thank you very much. Okay, so members that were here at the last meeting know that we discussed the Calc 2021 Community Awards Scheme, and members resolved to adopt the scheme for this year. So I did invite nominations from members for people in the community that they feel have gone over and above and contributed to our local community. So I'm pleased to say I've had 2 nominations. One of them is for Mike Wiseman and Phil Toghill, and one of them is for Ray and Christina Taylor. So those are the 2 nominations we've received. We can only sadly send 1 nomination to Calc. So if members are happy, I was going to read the 2 pledges and nominations that in the words that I've been shared with me. So for Mike Wiseman and Phil Toghill, who, if some don't realise, they're the 2 gentlemen that have been doing the shelter works on Sea Road and working in the gardens. Our environmental and social wellbeing heroes, initiating and delivering projects to improve our historic coastline attractions, providing restful contemplating exercise and social interaction for the benefit of residents and visitors. So that was the nomination for Mike and Phil Toghill. And then the nomination for Ray and Christina Taylor for their work in the community during COVID, medication, shopping, collecting and delivering, general community support, phone calls, their involvement with litter picking, the Christmas Lights Committee, WWRA and Fixology. So those are the 2 nominations, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer if I can.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Page.
Are we this evening voting on which nomination will go forward to Calc, or are both of those nominations going forward together?
No, so it is 1 nomination. We can only submit 1 nomination. And I think I've had a conversation with Councillor Cornford about this, because I think we have a few people in our community that this year for one, or last year for one reason or another, have contributed hugely. And we'd like to reflect that at the annual town meeting. So what we would like to do is bring that in a report to members and actually propose that we find a way of actually thanking people in the community that have gone over and above and been supportive. So this isn't to say that they won't be reflected in giving them congratulations or contributions in the annual town meeting, but we literally have 1 nomination that we can share with Calc, and it is a sad position to be in, but unfortunately that's the case.
Councillor Pennington.
Do we have any idea from Calc as to the kind of criteria they might use? One of these is very, I mean, the citation is really quite COVID focused and the other isn't. And I just wondered if there was any indication that, would there be special consideration COVID, or did they consider that other kinds of awards are specifically foreseen for COVID, so they would give it less emphasis? Thank
So it is for the town council to decide the criteria. They do give examples in their outline and the information that they've shared with us, but they don't actually set the criteria. So it's for us, we are asking Calc that this is our nomination, and then they prepare the award that's signed by the sheriff and then provided to us in time for our annual town meeting. Because the idea is that you actually share this with the group or the individual at the annual town meeting.
And I'd like to add that the words that Jill read out, you could only write 30 words, because those are the words that go on the certificate.
Yes.
So it's quite difficult to condense it. Shall we take a vote, Jill? Councillor Page, were you going to say something? Did you want to say something?
Sorry, I was just unmuting. I was purely going to ask, do you want us to vote, to be honest with you?
Yes, please, because the deadline is next week. So time is of the essence. If we want to submit a nomination, we have to make that decision this evening.
Jill, would you like to run the nominations, or would you like me to? Go ahead.
So really, what I was going to ask is if there is a member that wants to propose one of the nominations, and then obviously because you've got two nominations, it depends on the number of votes.
And
sorry, I'm going to say I can see two hands in the air. Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Page. I'm not sure who was first.
I would like to nominate Mr. Wiseman and his partner, please.
Okay.
And obviously, I'm going to nominate Ray Taylor and and Christine Taylor for the work that they do for the community.
Okay.
So we'll do one at a time.
Yes, please. I was going to say, Councillor Page proposed. Is there a seconder for Councillor Page's nomination? Yeah. Councillor Wallin. All those in favour of Councillor Page's proposal? 1, 2, 3, 4. Was that? Sorry, can I just have a recount? Sorry. 4, 1. Yes, thank you. 4. And then Councillor O'Connor's proposal. Is there a seconder for Councillor O'Connor's proposal? Councillor Hannah Scott. And then all those in favour of that proposal, please. 2, 4. So Councillor Cornford, as the chair of the council, you do have a casting vote.
What fun. I'm going to vote for Mike Wiseman.
Okay.
And can I say why I've made that vote, or is that not necessary?
It's not necessary. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll email everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Right. Item number 10. The A is no longer on the agenda as we haven't received a third quotation, which was expected from a local supplier. Is that right, Jill?
Yes, that's correct. So I'll bring that to members at the next meeting. So it's deferred until the next meeting.
And A is you're going to report on the update on the proposed siting of the container, following on from what Councillor O'Connor said earlier.
Yes, thank you. So those of you that sit on the Finance and General Purposes Committee, you've obviously heard this report, so I do apologise for the repetition. So Thanet District Council previously advised that they were seeking possession of the hut on Boundary Road. So we've been in the process of trying to get a container that I originally proposed that we would put next to the community centre. Now, the size of this container that we wanted, when the Thanet District Council estates team looked at the licence we'd need, actually realised that it would encroach on the area of the car park that's leased to the Community Centre Association. So there would need to be a licence between the Town Council and the Community Centre Association. Now, this isn't to say that that's not a possibility, but there's a lot of work involved in that and obviously time consuming. So I've went out on site and measured next to the pavilion, and there is actually area without encroaching on the nice tree that's there as well. It would actually sit in the corner. It would have to sit on 4 railway sleepers to make sure that the ground's stable enough. But there is room for it, and it can be actually use a HIAB and get it in onto the site. So I thought that as the community asset transfer is imminent, I'm assured, this would be an ideal position because it will actually be on our own land once the asset transfer is completed. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. So I've brought that back to members. Clearly as well, there's been a slight increase in the price of steel since that quotation was obtained last year. So that it's actually an increase of £200 for the container. So it's now £1,800 plus VAT. So that's the recommendation. It went to the Finance and General Purposes Committee, and I brought it to Council tonight for a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Page and then Councillor Pennington.
I was just wondering if the railway sleepers have been included in that cost, or will those be extra?
Those will be extra, yes.
Do we know how much, possibly?
As long as I can get them from Can Do, I don't know if they're open, I haven't actually checked. It should be in the region of about £200.
Thank you.
Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Has there been any contact with the owners of the pavilion over this?
So the pavilion I'm talking about is not the one on Sea Road, sorry, it's the one at the recreation ground.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes. So the recreation ground, hopefully our community asset transfer that should be completed later this month or beginning of March.
Yeah, sorry.
Jill, I've just got one question about where it's actually sited.
Yes.
Because there's a gate, if you're looking westward at the pavilion, there's a gate in the fence, isn't there, in the actual creation ground?
Yes, so there's double gates there that is actually access for a vehicle, and it wouldn't be in front, it would be to the right hand side, because actually to the right hand side of those gates you've actually got the nice tree as well sat there. So it would fit in the corner, so it wouldn't actually be too close to the tree, so it wouldn't interfere with the tree, and it is clear of the gates. Yes,
it's an ideal situation, isn't it? Does anybody else have any comments about this? If not, who would like to propose? Councillor O'Connor. And seconded by Councillor Page. And everybody in favour? Thank you. Right, item number 11 is the defibrillators. Jill?
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So I say you've heard some of this information already, but I'll share it with you anyway. So Lorraine, as you know, has been working very hard with the Community Spirit Craft Group to get this funding raised. The Thanet Community First Responders confirmed that the defibrillator they were happy to donate if we could raise the funds for the cabinet. So that's a really good situation to be in. Obviously, the success of the funding has meant that there's now going to be the cabinet and defibrillator on Camborne Avenue as well. But after all the fundraising, there is a shortfall of £267.72 for the purchase of the 2 cabinets and 1 defibrillator. And obviously the cost of installation as well, the electrical supply installation, which I'm informed is no more than £300. So it was to bring that to members this evening. As you can see on the report as well, there is another proposal I added, that with the London Hearts actual funding opportunity at the moment, they've got a reduction of £100 on each outdoor cabinet. We could actually purchase an outdoor cabinet for the defibrillator that's actually sat in Edwards Supermarket and get that sited outside. So that would be another defibrillator that's available 24 hours a day. So that would be an additional £425. So in total, It's £425 for one of the defibrillator cabinets for the defibrillator in Edwards. It will be the shortfall of £267.72 to meet the cost for the defibrillator and 2 cabinets with Lorraine's funding. And then the £300 electrical installation cost as well. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer anything else I can.
Anybody, any questions? So this is broken up into 3 separate resolutions, correct? John?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Would somebody like to propose the first one, which is to complete the amount up to £267.72 for the external heated cabinet? Thank you, Councillor Page. And seconded by Councillor O'Connor, and everybody in agreement? Thank you.
Thank you.
The second one is to meet the cost of the installation for the external heated cabinets, £300.
Councillor Pennington.
Councillor Pennington, Councillor Nightingale seconding, and everybody in favour. Thank you. And the third one is to purchase the heated cabinet at Edwards for £425. Proposer?
Councillor Walling.
Councillor Page, seconded Councillor O'Connor, and all of us in favour. Is everyone in favour? That's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. That's really good. And hopefully we can all remember our CPR training.
Oh, Councillor O'Connor, she's got her hand.
Councillor O'Connor, you're on mute.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. And obviously that comes to £992.72, which is just 1,000. That still leaves the about £1,400, which is, of course, if we were thinking of doing one for St Mildred's, you know, would be nice to be able to do it. So I think I'd like to ask the councillors today if they are interested in and going ahead and doing the defibrillator for St Mildred's Bay as well.
That has to go on a separate agenda. Am I right, Jill?
I was going to suggest that we bring that to the next full council meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll do the report for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for the suggestion, Councillor O'Connor. Item number 12, we have 2 new policies for the Town Council, the safeguarding policy and the training and development policy. Jill?
Thank you. Yes. So following on from the Human Resources Committee, clearly with the asset transfer imminent, it's quite important that we do have an adopted safeguarding policy, as clearly we're going to be far more engaged with young people in the future. And in hand with this will be DBS training as well, which I'm proposing to start with will be for officers. So it'll be myself, the finance assistant, project assistant, definitely the lead operative, and also the tree biodiversity warden as well. So we'll be in the first tranche of DBS trained, DBS checks. And then obviously if there are members that are actively involved in events and projects to do with the asset transfer, I will be approaching them in the coming months. So with the safeguarding policy, as you can see, the onus is actually on the other authorities. So the district council and the county council clearly have those responsibilities when it comes to safeguarding, but it is important that we know if we have any suspicions of allegations or any abuse that comes to our attention, we do know the process of actually reporting and making sure that we are aware of our responsibilities as well as a town council. So if there's anyone got any questions on the content, I didn't know.
Do any councillors? Have we lost Pauline? Is she all right?
I think so. I don't know if she had a call in nature, I'm not sure.
Do we wait a few minutes or?
I was going to say, any members have any questions on that policy or? No? Okay. Well, I'll speak about the next policy while we're waiting.
Yeah.
So the next one is the training and development policy. Again, this has been to the Human Resources Committee. I started with the purpose and scope, just to introduce the policy, and then it talks about identifying and evaluating training and development needs for officers on the first page, and clearly this is through the appraisal process predominantly here. In addition, we do encourage employees to actually identify their own learning opportunities and training opportunities. And then as you go through the actual policy, you can see it's broken down into categories and talks about mandatory training, desirable training, and then optional. Then there's guidance for support. It talks about fees. It talks about study leave. And then there's actually the evaluation and recording of training, which is most important as well. So we don't want to just be having training for training's sake. It's really important that every training opportunity is evaluated and recorded as well for the corporate body, so we can demonstrate what a benefit it's having. And I just wanted to add that actually recently that's been demonstrated absolutely perfectly. We had our finance assistant undertook some allotment training for 2 days, and you know, she gleaned all sorts of little pieces of information, and hopefully, because she's been in contact with Councillor Dr. Scott about allotments, and it's really interesting, you know, and so hopefully, you know, there might be a benefit to the community as well. So yeah, I thought that was a really nice way of demonstrating the importance of training. So as if anyone got any questions on the training and development policy?
No.
Nope. Okay. Oh, Councillor Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott. Okay.
Just to mention that I've delegated that responsibility to Councillor Page with regards to the allotments. I didn't want to take the glory. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Jill, do you want to go back to the safeguarding one for the vote?
Yeah, yes, please, if you wouldn't mind asking for a proposer for the first policy.
Councillor Donaldson proposing and seconding, Councillor Page, and everybody in favour. Lovely, thank you very much. And the same with the training and development policy. Councillor Pennington to propose, Councillor O'Connor seconding, and all in favour. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13 is the draft report for a formal request for financial contribution for the community, which the town clerk will share with us. Jill.
Thank you. So having thought about obviously with the proposed development, the potential for some Section 106 money, and I know Councillor Dr. Scott's spoken about this before, and the importance of actually making sure that our proposals are aired and that they are considered. So I did make contact with Thanet District Council Planning Officer to make sure that the list that had been drafted, I think nearly 2 years ago now, had actually been shared with the Planning Officer. So she said that she hadn't got that, so I forwarded the list to her. So she came back to me and said that actually the proposal for the community centre was of interest, she thought, and maybe warranted some research and some information. So for us to progress this proposal, we had to have a report that's ready to submit to the TDC planning officer so that she can start the conversations with the agents acting for the developers. So this is at very early stages, and clearly there are no guarantees for anybody, but if we want to be considered, we need to make sure that we've got a serious and you know, concise report that we can put before people to be considered. So I sought some help as well from Councillor Dr. Scott, so she's had a look at the report as well. And I did actually have a meeting with the WOSCA, Westgate-on-Sea Community Centre Association as well, to seek their view. So I was very glad that they supplied me the information about which groups meet and when they meet. So you'll see that you've got the schedule that's attached, because that's important. Then I went to the contractor, WW Martin, to ask them if they would be able to meet me on site and actually come up with cost plans. And I said, you know, if we could have 2 proposals. So the one proposal is to actually demolish what's existing, the timber frame, and actually rebuild. And the second proposal would be to extend on what's already theirs and alter what's there, obviously. So as you can see, there's not a lot of difference in the prices that they came up with, but that's the WW Martin scope of works. And clearly that's not very detailed at the moment, because we're not in that position. We're seeking the funding opportunity and want to make sure that, you know, the figures are put before people, but it's not in great detail yet. But TDC said at the moment this is initial conversations and we don't need to have lots of detail, just ballpark figures so that they can work with those. And then obviously in the report I did an introduction, gave an outline on the information, then the actual number 3 is the report. So that's the part that I propose that we send off to Thanet District Council. And I've had one comment from Councillor Dr. Scott just to make a slight amendment, which I've said I think is a good idea. In the section where it talks about the what we require, we should maybe break up where we say the town council could look at sponsorship opportunities. We could actually make that a separate section and make that the Westgate-on-Sea Town Council assistance. So I think that's a really good idea to keep those separate. So thank you for that feedback. Okay. So if there's any other questions or anything anyone wants to raise, happy to try and answer.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, this is great, but I'm just wondering, is it the only thing that we can actually put forward? Because obviously we've spoken about the allotments and the possible need for more allotments, and also, you know, would we need further children's play area as well, you know, to increase on that as well with the number of, you know, the houses and things like that. So it was just a question, is this the only thing that we can kind of go for, or would we need to include something like that?
Could I just ask, with the children's play area idea, we've got the recreation
Yes, but
ground right next door, haven't we? And that could be extended. Just a thought.
Yeah, but that's the area it's going to be used for football and earning money, isn't it? So
there's quite a large chunk of grassed area adjacent to the existing play area. Because when I looked at it, I thought, well, we could actually expand that play area.
Yeah.
Across, because there's no access on that side. It's all fenced off. I mean, this is getting into detail, but that is
yeah.
Just a thought. Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. I do think the community centre is a really important place for lots of people and lots of activities. I remember some years ago when we started looking at ideas, the centre itself produced a wish list, but it didn't go beyond that. So I'm really glad if we have proposals that not only meet some of the aspirations they had in their wish list, but also put some figures on how we might get there. I think that's a huge step forward. So I really I welcome what's going on. Thank the clerk for her work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pennington. There is actually garden and play area here, Councillor O'Connor, down at the bottom of the list.
Councillor
Scott. Sorry. Dr. Scott.
Sorry, it took me ages to unmute. Yeah, so this was kind of you know, thinking from the very beginning. We took a walk round, I think it was actually with JTP and Millwood Homes, and we walked past the community centre and we nodded to that to say, you know, if there's any Section 106 money, then there is an area where, you know, you could really invest and make this community centre, you know, really great, that you know, a whole range of people can start using it. And we're kind of thinking along the lines of the, you know, the cookery side of things, the youth club side of things, and you know, you could just see sort of more meetings and things like that taking place in the community centre. So it could become a real nice hub for Westgate with this extension. And I think because it's a building project, and we're probably asking for, you know, we're asking for a significant amount of money. It's also something that marries up with their ideas, because it's possibly something that they kind of need to put money into a community centre, and they can do that by investing in off-site extensions. So instead of them having to place it on site and kind of ticking a box, which they probably need to do, you know, really, they can put this money aside for off-site improvements. And I think this is the reason why it's a good route. With regards to the allotment extension, there is an allocation within the local plan, within the 2,000 houses, where they have to have extensions of allotments and open spaces. So we think that may be catered for, but Councillor Page is looking into that. But yeah, it's kind of it's quite a forward-thinking idea, and it's, you know, we're asking for quite a large sum of money, which could really change one of our community assets. So thank you, Jill, for, you know, going ahead and putting that report together and getting the quotes as well. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jill. Councillor Dr. Scott, am I right in thinking that at the consultation in autumn 2019 with the plans that Millwood had, they showed a completely different community centre offset nearer to Garlinge? Because we mentioned,
I remember a community centre offset by Garlinge. There were 3 proposals with regards to Section 106 money. One was a community centre in Garlinge, one was our community centre, and I can't remember the third one. There was something else that we were thinking about, but I can't remember it. So I'm not too sure whether that's what you're thinking. But also there's like a commercial centre which is built just off closer to Westgate. And so there is a possibility that something could be built there, but I'm kind of thinking they're more pushing for sort of office hubs and things really there, and a little shop rather than an actual community hub. So, you know, I think putting money into a hub that's already running, an extension of that could actually be something that might be beneficial to them.
well, especially as that's what we wanted in the first place. So that's good, isn't it? Councillor Page, did you want to make a comment?
I was wondering whether, I know we've considered in the past what might possibly be done for improving the existing library that we've got. I know it's under the umbrella of KCC, but could this be brought into consideration also? Particularly to try and extend its use in the future for a community use other than just a library and lending service or use of computers?
I think this is a different issue, Councillor Page. Am I right?
So, yeah, Councillor Dr. Scott.
I think we might be under a bit of a time limit to start putting some of these suggestions forward for the developers to think about. And I think it probably takes quite a long time to start putting the costings and things like that together. It's taken Jill quite a long time to put some of the costings together. So, you know, I think hedging our bets on this, the community centre, might be a good one to kind of, you know, to focus their mind on one particular project that we really want, which might tick their boxes as well. It might be beneficial to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Scott. Are we ready to propose that the Town Council submit this report? And if so, who would like to propose that we do so? Councillor Pennington, seconded by Councillor Dr. Scott. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, the appointment of the internal auditor. This is box ticking, isn't it, Jill?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yes, an important part of our annual calendar. When we have an external auditor, although they're called the internal, it's actually somebody that we pay and appoint each year. So I've already booked the appointment for the last week of April, because he came last year and did a socially distanced audit, so it won't be a problem. So I just wanted to make sure that we have the appointment all agreed. And I've proposed it's Mr. David Buckett, who is the auditor that normally attends. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Would Councillor like to propose? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Donaldson, and we're all in favour. Thank you. You were shaking your head there, Councillor Wallen. Is there a problem?
No, it doesn't matter. I love being ignored.
You're not being ignored. Item number 15, the consultations on the National Transport Survey. And what did we finally decide on this, Jill?
So I'd like to suggest that this is deferred to the Planning and Highways Environment Committee for their decision on whether or not the surveys are completed individually or for the group as a committee.
Thank you.
But that's up to members, obviously, to agree that.
Yes. Do we have a proposer for that? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Nightingale.
Yeah, the ones that aren't on the Planning and Highway Environment Committee.
It will be fine, Councillor Dr. Scott. Really more about highlighting the kick-starting of consultations, you know, for everybody. Did you want to say something, Councillor Dr. Scott?
No, in favour.
Oh, you're
Thank
in
you.
favour. Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Everybody in favour. Thank you.
And on the item of consultations, I just want to make people aware actually that on the website now we are putting on the news item the consultations that are coming through, and people can actually sign up for an alert so that when the news items come through on our website they will be alerted to anything that's coming through on the newsreel. So it's quite a good way of people keeping informed as well.
No, that's perfect, Jill. Thank you. Item number 16, the Town Council magazine, the General Service Agreement, and this comes with a plus this year. Jill.
Thank you. Yes, so we're actually all paid up for this financial year already, and the issue that's coming out in April is actually already paid for. So this is the agreement after April issues. And as you can see, if you've read the terms of the agreement, there's actually an extra issue included this year. So we will have 5 instead of 4, but it's actually the same fee. So there's no cost increase in the fee. And I hope that members agree that I think it's really working well now with the magazine and the actual consultations that we want to actually pursue for the Town Council this year. This is going to be really important because we have an extra issue, and I'm going to be working with Councillor O'Connor in coming up to the next issue with a consultation, the first one that we want to share with residents and really engage, because we're getting the community asset transfer. We really want to get more engagement and ideas from residents on what they'd like to see for the future of the Town Council and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Do we have a proposer? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Dr. Scott, and everybody in agreement? Thank you. Thank you. Right, that brings us to item number 17, and at this point we have to exclude the press and the public pursuant to section 1(2) of the Public Bodies Act 1960, admissions of meetings. So it's good night to Lorraine. Thank you very much for attending.
Councillor Cornford, if members agree first, sorry, we just need the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Donaldson, everybody in agreement? Thank you. Councillor Wallen, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll stop the recording. Oops.